All right, a lot of ground to cover tonight, and the great one, Mark Levin, will join us. Now, we start with President Trump reacting to the stunning news that the FBI, yes, was spying on the Trump campaign. Now, this has never happened before in American history. Let's take a look.
Congress would like to see documents opened up. A lot of people are saying they had spies in my campaign. If they had spies in my campaign, that would be a disgrace to this country. That would be one of the biggest insults that anyone's ever seen, and it would be very illegal, aside from everything else. It would make probably every political event ever look like small potatoes. So we want to make sure that there weren't. I hope there weren't, frankly. If they had spies in my campaign, during my campaign for political purposes, that would be unprecedented in the history of our country.
Unprecedented and illegal. Now, I want to take what the president said one step further. This is how serious and dangerous all of this is. If we as a country do not get to the bottom of this and expose everything about these deep state actors spying on an opposition party during a presidential campaign, rigging one candidate's email investigation, lying repeatedly to FISA court judges, we will lose the country. We will destroy the rule of law. We will shred our Constitution completely. But there is good news tonight, that finally the facts, the truth are all starting to come out, as we've been predicting, after what is unprecedented stonewalling, obstruction, slow walking from Rod Rosenstein and the DOJ while a meeting for Congress to finally see the documents that they have been demanding is set for Thursday. Now, the House GOP chairman, Devin Nunes, Trey Gowdy, they're sitting down with the FBI director, Chris Wray, the director of national intelligence, Dan Coates, and Rod Rosenstein's deputy, of course. And for the record, I do not trust Rod Rosenstein. I'll explain. Also, Sarah Carter reporting that these documents could hold the key and uncover every single thing about what was done to the Trump campaign and the Trump presidency and being spied on. And we believe that is exactly why Rod Rosenstein and the DOJ have been obstructing and concealing what really happened. Now, Rosenstein is trying to run out the clock. He hopes that Democrats will regain the House and this will all end and go away. Now, what is now apparent is that Rosenstein is aiding and abetting in what is nothing short of a cover-up of the single biggest instance of abuse of power and corruption in American history, and the media is right there with him. We have famed Harvard law professor Alan Dershowitz, been on the show many times, calling out the stunning hypocrisy surrounding this deep state scandal. Take a look.
If this had happened to Hillary Clinton, the ACLU would be jumping up and down the way they did when I was on the board of the ACLU, when undercover agents were put into the anti-war movement, into civil rights movement. All they were there was to listen, into Muslim churches. Civil libertarians are generally a little bit suspicious when undercover agents go just to ask questions, and I think we as civil libertarians ought to be suspicious of this. Allay our suspicions, and then we'll be fine.
Checkmate, Professor Dershowitz. He's right. Now, if this ever happened to Hillary Clinton, the media would be apoplectic. They would be demanding that people go to jail. But since it's Donald Trump and the media doesn't care and they hate Donald Trump, well, they have actually been missing in action in covering up this biggest abuse of power corruption scandal. Now, they have ignored every single crime that Hillary Clinton has committed and the fact that she bought and paid for a dossier put together by a foreign national filled with Russian lies and propaganda to influence you, the American people, and steal an election. Now, the FBI then takes that Clinton-funded piece of garbage, Russian propaganda, use it to get a FISA warrant to surveil on a Trump campaign associate, and they did it by lying to multiple FISA judges. This is the worst form of corruption. Now, all of that information is why tonight there's over a dozen House Republican lawmakers. They need support. They're signing on to a resolution that calls for a second special counsel to be appointed to investigate all of these abuses. Now, Congressman Ron DeSantis, he's one of those congressmen. He's supporting this and explaining why this must happen, which we have been saying now for a long time. Take a look.
We also need to get people to be held accountable for any FISA abuse that occurred. And then how did this investigation into the Trump campaign start? And was it on the up and up from the very beginning? There's always a lot of questions about that. And I don't think that the Justice Department is going to be able to investigate themselves. I think that they've resisted our inquiries here in Congress for long enough. And so it's time that we did have a special counsel.
Well said. And Congressman Jim Jordan and Matt Gaetz also signed this resolution. They'll join us on the program tonight. But first, we know that days after the FBI put in the fix and exonerated Hillary Clinton, exoneration before investigation, they immediately, the same actors, launched a surveillance operation against the Trump campaign. And it gets worse. Byron York tonight reporting that these new revelations about the FBI targeting the Trump campaign is now leading to very serious questions about when this FBI investigation actually started. Now, we've been told that it began at the end of July 2016. George Papadopoulos, drinking in a bar, four-way drunken hearsay. That's not even admissible hearsay in a courtroom, never mind four-way. And by the way, it never made any sense. Washington Post now reporting that this informant met with Carter Page a few weeks before the FBI says it officially launched the probe. Their timeline isn't matching up. And this is exactly why we need the second special counsel. And most importantly, we need an investigator appointed who has prosecutorial powers. The DOJ Inspector General is now looking into all of this. Rod Rosenstein wants the Inspector General. He cannot hold these deep state actors accountable. Now, Michael Horowitz doesn't even have the ability to convene a grand jury or issue indictments. The Clinton investigation, we still haven't gotten the report. It's 18 months later. Guess what? We don't have that kind of time. Now, what we need is a full, thorough, complete criminal investigation right now, because you, the American people, you deserve to know the truth. This has to be done for the sake of this country. And tonight we're learning even more stunning details about what really happened. This is pretty shocking. Former Trump campaign advisor Michael Caputo, he's now saying that there could have been multiple informants, multiple spies targeting the Trump campaign. Here's what he told our own Laura Ingraham last night. Take a look.
Let me tell you something that I know for a fact. This informant, this person that they tried to plant into the campaign and even into the administration, if you believe Axios, he's not the only person that came at the campaign. And the FBI is not the only Obama agency that came at the campaign. I know because they came at me. And I'm looking for clearance from my attorney to reveal this to the public. This is just the beginning. And I'll tell you, when we finally find out the truth about this, Director Clapper and the rest of them are going to be wearing some orange suits.
I think he's right. Remember, that individual, Mr. Caputo, remember, he came on this program and said, after I met with the special counsel, he said, we'll be watching you on TV. Really, Mr. Mueller? Is that how you want to run your investigation? Now, we could have now multiple spies, multiple informants. Chairman Nunes, he's saying the exact same thing. And if you're shocked by that, take a look at what Caputo revealed today. Take a look.
I was approached by an intermediary who had been talking to a government official, a former government official, who told him that they had Hillary Clinton-related emails at that government organization and that they wanted to get them to the Trump campaign. This was May 6th that he heard that in 2016. I was told by the intermediary on May 9th that they wanted to get them to me. I gave this information to the House Intelligence Committee. I gave this information to the Senate Intelligence Committee 2 weeks ago. And I gave this information to the Mueller team, and they never reached out to the intermediary to check on it.
Oh, so they don't care. It doesn't fit their predetermined narrative. Now, Caputo later explained during that interview with Neil that he turned down that offer for Clinton's emails. That is explosive information. And according to Caputo, Robert Mueller, you don't care about that? Really? Maybe too busy thinking about Paul Manafort's 2005 taxes. It explains everything you need to know why this is a witch hunt. Their goal has been to get candidate Trump and now President Trump. It's plain and simple. Now, the great one, Mark Levin, he has something very important to say about all of this later tonight. But first, even more breaking news to tell you about. Senate Homeland Security Committee Chairman Ron Johnson, he is demanding more information about the FBI's apparent awareness that media outlets had information about Christopher Steele, the foreign national with Russian sources, before the president-elect Trump was even briefed about it. And according now to FBI emails that Johnson's committee has obtained, the FBI had what they called a, quote, sensitive matter team that was actually communicating about the Steele dossier. Now, 2 days before CNN ran a story about the dossier even in existence, Andrew McCabe, deputy FBI director, sent this email, subject line that read, "Flood is coming." And then he goes on to write, CNN is close to going forward with the sensitive story. The trigger for them, CNN, is they know the material was discussed in the brief and presented in an attachment. And what do you know? CNN then runs the story. And then BuzzFeed publishes that entire phony Russian Clinton finance dossier. Now, Senator Johnson is now demanding to know who was a part of this sensitive matter team. Now, he's also asking for all of the documents, all the communications between Comey, James Clapper, and their staffs regarding the Trump Tower dossier briefing. Now, remember, the House Intel Committee's report on Russia, it found that Clapper, the former director of national intelligence, leaked information to CNN. He now works for them about the dossier. Becomes a contributor now on the fake news network. Predictably, he recently denied any wrongdoing. Of course, we already know he lied on oath. Take a look.
I didn't have any contact with media until after I left the government on the 20th of January. So I don't quite understand, at least what I've read, that somehow I leaked about the dossier.
So let me get, so you didn't leak anything about the dossier to any media?
No, not, I mean, I talked about it after I left the government, but not during that period, and certainly not between the 6th of January and the 10th when the president-elect himself talked about it.
Yeah, remember that Christopher Steele in interrogatories in Great Britain under oath said, yeah, well, it was raw intelligence, maybe 50-50 true. That becomes the basis for a FISA warrant. And Clapper is now firing back at the president, of course, lash out at him. And he doesn't like being called a liar, which he is. Let's watch.
The president tweeted about you, quote, Clapper is a lying machine who now works for fake news. So a lot of people I know, first of all, what was your reaction to that when you first saw that?
Well, the president's calling me a lying machine. Well, okay. What that stems from is an exchange I had with Senator Wyden 5 years ago in March of 2013 about a surveillance program, and he was asking me about one, and I was thinking about another. So I made a mistake, but I didn't lie.
Oh, just like Hillary made a mistake, she acid washed her hard drive. As we've been saying, Clapper, all of his deep state friends have the right to remain silent. I have some friendly advice. I tried to give it to Jim Comey. Stop talking, lawyer up, a storm is coming. Now, demoted DOJ official Bruce Orr is another one of these deep state minions who's feeling the heat tonight. The Senate Judiciary Committee chairman, Chuck Grassley, he wants to see all the communications between Orr and the former British spy and dossier author Christopher Steele. Remember, Orr is the guy who was in communication with Steele both before and after the election. And it was Orr's wife, Nellie. She actually worked for Fusion GPS, helped put together the op research that turned out to be lies. And Grassley now wants to know if Orr was giving the FBI information that Steele provided after Steele was fired by the FBI for lying about his contacts with the media. All right, another big story we're following tonight. We do have an update on the nuclear showdown with little rocket man in North Korea, Kim Jong-un. President Trump is now saying the June 12th summit, well, might not work out. Take a look.
There are certain conditions that we want, and I think we'll get those conditions. And if we don't have the meeting. And frankly, it has a chance to be a great, great meeting for North Korea and a great meeting for the world. If it doesn't happen, maybe it'll happen later. Maybe it'll happen at a different time. But we will see. But we are talking. The meeting scheduled, as you know, on June 12th in Singapore. And whether or not it happens, you'll be knowing pretty soon. But we're talking right now.
The president's entire approach to these talks has been, we'll see what happens. And for all you haters of Trump out there on the left, you need to watch how a pro negotiates. As Trump has said in his own book, The Art of the Deal, you have to always be willing to walk away up to the last second. And I get it. You liberals, you're upset because the president isn't bowing and kissing the ring of Kim Jong-un and offering pallets full of cash and other currencies like the $150 billion Obama gave the mullahs. Now, if Kim Jong-un wants to come to the table, then, well, the president is willing to listen. And if Kim Jong-un wants to threaten the world like he was before, well, the president will show the force that he showed the last time, and we'll be back to where we started. Now, the president is reacting from a position of strength. Let's see. He's given up nothing. Kim Jong-un is making every concession. And speaking of those concessions, North Korea is now inviting international media to watch their dismantling of their nuclear test site. and he crossed the DMZ, and he released the hostages, and we didn't pay him anything. All right. Also, great news for the president tonight and Republicans in Congress. Look at this. The GOP now holds an edge over Democrats in the generic midterm ballot for the first time in a brand new Reuters poll. Look at that. And back in late April, Democrats had a 10-point advantage in that same poll. And in another poll, they were 17 points back. Republicans were in January. And Nancy Pelosi may want to cancel those plans about becoming the next speaker. This will be the most important midterm election in our lifetime. All right, here with reaction to all this breaking news today, he is the host of CRTV's Levin TV and right here on the Fox News Channel, #1 show, Sunday nights, 10 Eastern. I call him the great one, Mark Levin. Life, Liberty, and Levin is the name of the show. All right, so we have this appointment of Robert Mueller by Deputy Attorney General Rod Rosenstein because Sessions is recused. You have been saying in the last 24 hours on your radio show, and you told me privately, that this very well violates our Constitution and more specifically the Appointments Clause. And I want you to really explain this to our audience tonight.
First of all, this seed was planted with me by hat-tip to Professor Stephen Calabrese, an old friend of mine who worked for Attorney General Meese as well. We have in the Constitution something called the Appointments Clause, and it applies to principal officers of the executive branch. There's inferior officers, you know, like a chief of staff, an administrative assistant who reports to a principal. Then there's principal officers. As an example, every single United States attorney in the United States has to be nominated by the President of the United States and confirmed by the Senate because our founders made clear that they wanted both branches of government involved in appointments of these senior level people. You have assistant secretaries in departments, deputy secretaries in departments, and, of course, cabinet secretaries, and I said U.S. attorneys. Here's the problem. The appointment of Mueller is utterly unconstitutional for a number of reasons. Rod Rosenstein gave him an agenda that is so broad, not a specific individual, not a specific statute, not even a specific matter. And not only was the initial appointment incredibly broad, he keeps expanding it. So this special counsel is different than past special counsels. He's more like a roving U.S. attorney. Also, we learned something today that's absolutely incredible. In Politico, it says several court filings indicate that when lawyers for Mueller's office appeared in federal court in Alexandria earlier this year, they did so not only as representatives of Mueller's office, but they received an appointment, a special assistant United States attorney appointment in the Eastern District of Virginia. They are, in effect, assistant United States attorneys. Robert Mueller wanted to expand their power. They report to him. If they're assistant United States attorneys or special assistants United States attorneys, that makes Mueller, without question, the equivalent of a United States attorney. So what's unique about him and past independent counsel and special counsel is the massive breadth of his investigation. He's going into bank fraud, wire fraud. He's going into Russia. He's going into a number of other countries. He's interviewed hundreds of individuals, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of documents. He's not an inferior employee like an administrative assistant or anything of that sort. He is a principal officer. And under the Appointments Clause of the United States Constitution, Article 2, Mr. Rosenstein usurped the authority of the President of the United States to nominate whomever he wants as a prosecutor, and Mr. Rosenstein usurped the power of the United States Senate, which has the control over confirmation or not. Mr. Mueller is serving unconstitutionally in violation of the Appointments Clause of the Constitution because of the way Rosenstein appointed him, because of expanding his authority, because Mr. Mueller has expanded his own authority with these 4 now assistant United States attorneys. And every defendant in this case, every witness in this case, everybody who receives a subpoena in this case, whatever federal court it is, should raise the issue of the Appointments Clause of the Constitution and that Mr. Mueller is conducting himself and his appointment is unconstitutional. See, here's the deal. These career bureaucrat prosecutors like Rosenstein and Mueller and Comey, they don't understand the Constitution. They understand parts of it like due process, warrants, subpoenas, probable cause. They've never read the Appointments Clause. Yeah. They've never read the Supreme Court decisions involved in that, like Morrison versus Olson and so forth. I have. Professor Calabrese has. I want your audience to know this, too. So Mr. Mueller, unlike any past special counsel, unlike any past independent counsel, the breadth of his investigation is so massive, it's so broad, by the initial appointment, the subsequent expansion, and now 4 of his own people getting dual appointments as effectively assistant United States attorneys. Mr. Mueller, his conduct, his appointment is unconstitutional.
You know, that's why I call you the great one. What you're saying, I hope every attorney involved in this case heard you. And if you're out watching tonight, when this is up on foxnews.com, please tweet it out. Please use social media. Please make sure this goes viral.
And all you attorneys out there, go for it, baby. I know what I'm talking about.
That's why we call you the great one. Life, Liberty, Levin. It's every Sunday night. I'm going to be a guest in a coming edition with the great one, Mark Levin, my friend. Thank you.
Nancy Pelosi and the group, you heard her the other day. She wants to raise your taxes. They want to get rid of the tax cut bill and raise your taxes. Somehow, I don't think that plays well, but you never know, right? Wants to raise your taxes. These are people that don't believe in borders, don't believe in fighting crime, don't believe in making a strong military. They don't believe in what the people in this room believe. That I can tell you. So we have to do a great job.
The president at the Susan B. Anthony dinner tonight, warning us about what is to come if Nancy Pelosi and the Democrats ever took over Congress this November, despite Republicans now leading in a generic ballot poll against the Democrats. You have Congressman Al Green. He's exposing the left's plan if they take a majority. You've heard it before, but they're just trying to be a little more quiet about it. But this is their plan. Believe it.
I'm not sure that there'll be members who are going to wait for someone else if that someone else, doesn't matter who it is declining to do it. We can all do it. And I think that there's a good likelihood that there will be articles of impeachment.
Here with reaction, Fox News national security analyst Sebastian Gorka, former Secret Service officer, NRA TV contributor Dan Bongino. Dan, we'll start with you. It's always been there. It's always been the case. Nancy will give in. Pelosi will give in to her left-wing base. They want to raise taxes. They basically would like to stop this president's successful agenda. But more importantly, they will go for impeachment regardless. There's no evidence.
Yeah, Sean, do you understand, right? They have nothing else, right? This is a broken, destructive, disturbing shell of a party that is drowning in identity politics and rage at Donald Trump, that is manifesting itself through outrageous calls for impeachment for fairy tale collusion charges no one can provide any evidence of. Sean, you can't win a Democrat primary in these radical far-left districts, congressional districts, if you don't go, full psychopath and start calling for the impeachment of Donald Trump. I mean, they don't stand for anything anymore. The party's completely broken.
Well, that's the point. And Dr. Gorka, we have been discussing this. There is talk within the Democratic ranks. Just don't say it. We believe it, but just keep it quiet. Let's not be honest with the American people. But they are honest about, we're running on the platform. Let's raise everybody's taxes dramatically. I don't know if that's going to work.
What else do they have, Sean? Literally. We want to raise your taxes. What else could they do? We want to, bring back ISIS? We want to make sure that the wall isn't built. We want the economy to tank. We don't want 5 million people to be given cash bonuses because of the tax reform. They have nothing to run on. But, Sean, 2018 is even more important than 2016, because if they get the majority, they will begin impeachment, and all of the incredible things that the president has done in just 15 months will be stopped. They will be obstructed for the next 7 years. So 2016 was an act of God. Yes, absolutely. But we need to make sure that the flotilla comes up behind this icebreaker who is Donald Trump and make sure the Make America Great Again agenda is implemented for the next 7 years.
Think about this. In January and February, there was a 17-point advantage, Democratic advantage, generic ballot, Dan. Now it's a 6-point Republican advantage. I think it's the president's success that has turned this all around.
Yeah, Sean, people vote kitchen table issues. They vote on the fatness of their wallet, not the fatness of fake Russian collusion charges, which they've wasted all this time on. The Democrats have learned nothing from the impeachment of Bill Clinton and his subsequent win in the Senate there in that trial. The American people do not want the results of a fair and sound election overturned by a bunch of politicians up on Capitol Hill. This is a tactically ridiculous move that is the blowback will be substantial if they actually do this.
Yeah, and Dr. Gorky, what is your take? Look, I've been saying, and I have a lot of plans for this audience coming up in the days, weeks, and months ahead. Don't want to reveal my plans. A lot of copycats and uncreative people in television and radio. So here's my point. This will be a defining historic moment, this midterm election, the most important midterm perhaps in American history, because this is going to be about an election to destroy this president. That is all they have, that and raising taxes and gutting our military. That's it. That's what they stand for, but they won't even be honest with the American people about that agenda.
Obama admitted, Sean, he wants to fundamentally change America. You don't fundamentally change something you love. This is our window. This is our opportunity. There's a very small window now to bring it all back, to bring back the republic. The stakes could not be higher. They want to divide us. They want to undermine us. It is only the midterms that's going to make it possible to save the republic. It's simply that massive a stake right now.
Dan, and you agree?
Yeah, I agree. They've learned nothing, the Democrats, from their loss in Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, and nearly in Minnesota as well. They've learned absolutely nothing.
All right, guys, always appreciate both of you.
The latest details on the Russia investigation are beginning to make Watergate look like child's play. The revelations of the Obama-era political targeting grow more ominous by the day. The FBI is under increasing pressure tonight to explain why it was surveilling the Trump campaign, as the number of people contacted by informants continues to increase. Sam Clovis, George Papadopoulos, and Carter Page were targeted, the latter responding last night on The Angle.
I never knew anything about the person I was speaking with, who's a university professor at Cambridge in the UK at the time. I was invited to participate in a conference in July of 2016, and everything seemed totally normal.
It's called grooming. That's what they do, Carter. But a much more incendiary claim was made by one of our other guests. Former Trump campaign advisor Michael Caputo told me last night that he knows for a fact that there was more than one informant targeting Trump team members, because he was one of those targets.
Let me tell you something that I know for a fact. This informant, this person that they tried to plan into the campaign and even into the administration, if you believe Axios, he's not the only person that came at the campaign. And the FBI is not the only Obama agency that came at the campaign. I know because they came at me.
The president responded to the intrigue today.
If they had spies in my campaign, that would be a disgrace to this country. That would be one of the biggest insults that anyone's ever seen, and it would be very illegal, aside from everything else. It would make probably every political event ever look like small potatoes. That would be unprecedented in the history of our country.
Caputo advanced his claim earlier on Fox, claiming that someone, some shadowy figure, floated the idea of passing along emails related to Hillary Clinton to the Trump campaign.
So you raised the issue, just to be clear, you raised this issue with Mueller's team when they were questioning you, and they did nothing?
They weren't even interested. They didn't even seem to be taking notes. I offered them the timeline.
We at the Ingram Angle, along with a DOJ producer at Fox, looked into these claims and have identified the figure in question. Well, our source corroborated some of Caputo's claims, but he denied trying to entrap Caputo and his associate. He further insisted that he did not work for any intelligence agency. Either way, it looks like the FBI's targeting of informal or kind of low-level Trump associates to get dirt on higher-ups was something of a trend, perhaps a dangerous one during the Obama administration. Let's turn to Newt Gingrich to react to the latest revelations about the deep state's misdeeds Mr. Speaker, it is great to see you, but my goodness, this is wild. You have this person, a professor in England, who's making these contacts with various members of the Trump team, throwing the whole timeline into question. Originally, we heard from Comey that the investigation really began on July 31st. Now it looks like this particular informant, spy, mole, whatever you want to call him, met with Carter Page early July.
Well, look, it all keeps getting more and more open. Presently, remember there was a reference at one point, very early on, to senior Obama administration people being briefed. Presently, somebody will figure out to ask, what did Valerie Jarrett know, and when did she know it?
I asked that last night on the Angle News.
And what did? Well, you're right on target. What did Barack Obama know, and when did he know it? Because what you're seeing happen is on every single level, and this is what happens with really big scandals. They keep on folding, and they keep on folding, and they keep on folding. So we're now supposed to believe that the Director of National Intelligence was lying to us. The head of the Central Intelligence Agency was lying to us. The head of the Federal Bureau of Investigation was lying to us. The number 2 person at the FBI was lying to us. The Attorney General was lying to us. I mean, she was meeting with Bill Clinton in an airplane in private to talk about their grandchildren. I mean, at what point do you just say, give me a break? And all of this, I believe, was being coordinated by Obama and by Valerie Jarrett and by the White House.
You go right to Obama on this. So you think it's inconceivable that the chief executive officer of the country was not told that they had seen this Carter Page on the list of the foreign policy advisors, and they decided to go into overdrive?
Look, I don't believe, if you took at the total number of things going on, I don't believe in an administration that was as tightly centralized as the Obama administration. You could have had as many different things going on, all of them illegal, without the president having been briefed. Furthermore, I'll give you one other example. The president is emailing Hillary Clinton on her insecure email. They carefully reword the FBI report to avoid telling us that President Obama clearly had to know she was using an illegal email because he's writing to it.
But Newt, remember Susan Rice said President Obama did everything by the books. Remember she wrote that email to herself. I have to mention it in every show. All right, this is what Jim Clapper said today on The View about whether spying really occurred. Let's watch.
Was the FBI spying on Trump's campaign?
No, they were not. They were spying on a term I don't particularly like, but on what the Russians were doing, trying to understand, were the Russians infiltrating, trying to gain access, trying to gain leverage.
Newt, a legitimate inquiry. If the Russians are pulling the strings of the Trump campaign, that's what he says.
First of all, and I've known Jim Clapper for years. I am astounded how bad he looks now. I'm astounded how dishonest and incompetent he looks. I mean, he was a great public servant for many, many years. But when the former director of national intelligence tells you he doesn't like to use the word spying, you have to ask yourself.
That is funny. I didn't think of it until you just mentioned that.
He was the director of national intelligence. What do you think he was in charge of doing? He was in charge of spying. And this whole thing is just, people on the left, I think what happened was people like Clapper and the former director of the Central Intelligence Agency, all of these guys thought they could get away with this because Hillary was going to win. And when Hillary won, the fix would be in, everything would be covered up. And around 10 o'clock on election night, they all began to realize this could get really bad. And they were shifting gears from protecting Hillary, which had been their job for 2 years, to trying to destroy Trump. And now you're watching people who I think in every case are in danger of going to jail. I mean, if the system works and people are actually tested on, did you tell the truth under oath? And then Clapper's a perfect example.
But we have actually, he was talking about that big moment where he didn't tell the truth about the surveillance program. He addressed this today.
The president's calling me a lying machine. Well, okay. What that stems from is an exchange I had with Senator Wyden 5 years ago in March of 2013 about a surveillance program, and he was asking me about one, and I was thinking about another. So I made a mistake, but I didn't lie. So that's what occasioned.
So what you're referencing, though, is that when you said, when you're talking about James Snowden blowing the whistle on the NSA illegally spying, and in 2013, when you were asked about it, you said no. So that is a lie. And
no, it isn't a lie. I'm sorry. It isn't a lie. I was thinking about something else.
I want to buy a vowel at this point. I have no idea
First of all, I hope General Flynn watched that.
Yeah.
And I hope General Flynn's prepared to go back and say to Mueller now, obviously the Clapper defense, you know, whatever you thought I said, I didn't mean to say, and it wasn't what I said. And I don't know why you thought I said it, because I wouldn't have said it if I'd known you thought I said it, and therefore it can't really be a problem. This tells you how pathetic this is going to get.
But this is the intelligence agency. I mean, these are like the most important people in our intelligence that you say is such a consummate professional. He sounds like a bumbling idiot.
Well, what you're watching...
Sorry, I'm being cruel here, I guess, but that's just outrageous.
What you're watching is a man who was a great professional, who's now in a totally impossible situation and ought to get off television, desperately trying to explain and defend the indefensible.
Joy Behar, look, I'd trust her more with national intelligence at this point than I would Jim Clapper.